Hello everyone, and welcome to my channel, and welcome back to my channel. If you're here for the first time, well, I just wanted to say there is over 200 tutorials on watercolors on my channel, so please go ahead and check it out. I'm sure you will find something for yourself, something interesting that you might paint and that you might learn from. Today I will be actually testing this Clairefontaine watercolor paper. It is 100% cotton watercolor paper, 300 GSM or 140 pounds, and it is a hot pressed watercolors paper. You who are here on my channel frequently or even more than once, you've noticed that I usually paint on cold press watercolor paper. This is a cold press watercolor paper that I'm showing you right now, and you can see the difference, how this one is a little bit more textured on the left and on the right side is a little bit more flat, a little bit more smoother. So as I said, I don't usually paint on hot press watercolor paper, but today I will be testing this one. And while painting along, I will be also telling you my impressions. For the paints, I will be using these greens, mix of greens, some pinkish color, blue, and some yellow color. All the materials I will be using for this painting are listed down in the description box, so go ahead, please check them out. And there are also my affiliate links there, and if you're in the process of purchasing something, looking to purchase something, if you follow those links and buy some supplies, I will get a small commission and of course be very grateful to you. Right now I did my sketch, I will trace it onto a watercolor paper, and now I was picking up the excess graphite from it. I do like to do that. I use an artist eraser, kneaded eraser, to lighten my sketch and also to pick up the excess graphite from it, because I really don't like when the graphite from the pencils or from the graphite paper mixes with my watercolors. It can smudge it slightly sometimes, so I'm just cautious and like to remove that excess graphite. And since this time I'm painting on a sheet of watercolor paper, I will be gluing it down to my table. You can glue it down to any surface you like, any flat surface and stronger surface, because I don't want it to warp while painting. So I am gluing it down, and also in the meanwhile I will be making this beautiful, but this time very, very thin border around my painting, and I do like that white border, so that's a plus, right? And as I said, you can glue it down to any flat surface, maybe some board or whatever makes it easier for you. If you glue it down to your table, you won't be able to turn it around, but it really doesn't matter. This time I won't be needing to turn it around. And after finished with that, I've pre-wetted the paper around my flowers and the branch, and started off with this light blue color, just painting in the background, also adding a little bit of green color. And you can see right now I'm just going around my flowers, but I'm not really trying to be perfectly precise to paint everything around it. I do want that background to be slightly looser, so I am just adding color here and there, not really being so careful to paint every single part around the flowers. And as I started off this, right away I can see a slight difference between the hot pressed and cold pressed watercolor paper. I can notice that the water can sit a little bit more on top of that hot press watercolor paper, while on a cold press watercolor paper it just soaks it in a little bit more. And it is a little bit more harder to paint washes on hot press watercolor paper. I would say that paper is a little bit more better maybe for some detailed painting, so just keep that in mind, that when you add a lot of water on top of hot press watercolor paper, it has the tendency to sit on it and not soak in so much. So just try to use a little bit, maybe less water, or just to paint dry on dry, wet on dry, and not really wet on wet. It is possible, I did it right now, you could have seen, but I've noticed that water just sits slightly on top of it. And now I moved on to painting my flower, and as you can see, I'm using this pinkish color and just painting not the entire petal the same way, but I started on the corners with a little bit darker and then smudge it inwards, leaving that inner part of my petals a little bit lighter. And the middle part I did paint with, I think that was olive green, and then added a little bit of green. Again, I'm not trying to make it perfectly, to be absolutely precise and realistic, just, you know, adding the color where I think it's fit. And right now I'm adding a little bit more details, and for this I am using a synthetic brush with a very nice pointy tip, and that snaps back easily. So you can right now use any detail brush you have, or maybe some round brush that has a pointy tip to paint in those details. And I did use a little bit of that bluish mix to paint in also some shadows on my flowers. And while painting those details, and this time I am painting wet on dry, I can see that paint can, well, slide a little bit better on hot press watercolor paper, but also when painting on hot press watercolor paper, that is the difference between the hot pressed and cold pressed. Also, you get a little bit less texture. When painting wet on dry or dry on dry, I think you can hardly achieve any texture while painting dry on dry, but with dry brushing, because you know that paper is just so smooth, very smooth. And you know that dry brushing technique is maybe not really the best technique for painting on hot press watercolor paper, because you know there is no texture on that paper, and there is no pores where the paint can be left while painting dry on dry. So I think this is maybe the best paper for painting wet on dry technique and painting into details. That is my impression by now, and how I feel about it. I will be trying on probably later on to paint some landscapes, seascapes on it, just to see how it will behave. But for now, I do believe if you want a smoother outcome, this paper is just perfect for that. If you don't want any textures, any dry brushing effects, I think this paper is just perfect. And if you want a smooth wash, well, just go ahead and try it. And also, I did wanted to say I'm using this time this Clairefontaine watercolor paper, Clairefontaine Fontaine. And just to be completely honest with you, I did receive those papers to try them on from Clairefontaine. So I just wanted you to know that this video is not really sponsored. I just did get those papers to make a review. And everything I am saying is completely honest, and it is my opinion, not influenced by anything. Now, having said that, this paper is pretty affordable. It is quite cheaper than some other brands that also have this 100% cotton watercolor paper, but I really do love it. I do use their cold press watercolor paper, and now I've tried this hot press watercolor paper, and I must say I don't see a huge difference between a little bit more expensive paper and this one. I really do like it. I do like how it behaves with water. It doesn't warp at all. I'm just noticing right now that this paper just almost did not warp at all. I did glue it down, but still there is no any places where my water is held, where I have some puddles or something like that. It is staying perfectly flat. And okay, I did not paint a lot of washes this time. I did paint a wash only the background, but not the other parts. But still, I really do like it. I do like how it behaves and how it soaks in that pigment, and I also do like how the colors look on it. They're staying very bright, and I'm not even using a lot of pigment. My paints are a little bit watered down, and it is very vibrant. I painted the branch. This is, I think, first was Mars brown and then later on sepia. Just started with a lighter color, painting the upper part of the branch, and darker color, adding some texture to your branches with some darker brown colors. Also, I moved on to painting the buds, and I did leave some part of the buds a little bit less pigmented, a little bit lighter, because I do want it to look like there are some highlights and also some shadows on them. Just to recap right now, I did notice so that hot press watercolor paper is probably better for painting wet on dry, not really for painting wet on wet techniques, because water sits on it. So also it is better for a little bit more detailed painting, because if you're not doing a lot of washes and with that painting in a little bit looser style, I think detailed painting, some flowers, maybe portraits, are better thing to paint on hot press watercolor paper. Also, this paper is not really cut out for dry brushing techniques and getting textures that you can usually achieve with roughness of the paper, because this paper is so smooth and it does not give you any textures when you do dry brushing techniques. I think those are the details, those are the things that I've noticed for now. I will be painting a little bit more maybe on hot press watercolor paper, so when I do, I will also share with you my findings. At the end, after painting those details, I decided I do want to add a little bit of yellow pigment to my petals and also some white wash for the strongest highlights here and there on my petals and also on the buds. And with those last details, I'll be finishing off this painting and of course this video. Thank you guys a lot for watching. I hope you liked the review. I hope you liked the information you got a little bit more about that hot press watercolor paper. If you do have any questions, go ahead, ask it in the comments down below and I will be happy to answer. And if you do like this video, please hit the like button, share it, comment, and if you haven't still, please subscribe to my channel. That would really mean a lot to me. And if you want to go a step further, please consider joining my channel. You can find out a little bit more about that when you click that join button next to the subscribe button. You can hear the offer and then decide whether or not you want to join. And well, without further ado, guys, thank you again so much for watching and I hope I'll see you next time. Bye!